Joining me today is Scott Roberts, Technical Director at Davis Langdon, who will be speaking at IIR's Modular Building Design, Construct and Deliver Conference, which takes place on the 28th to 29th of March 2011 in Perth. Hi Scott, thanks for joining us.
Hi James, thanks for having me.
Can you start by providing me with a brief overview of the building code compliance for modular building?
Yes, certainly. Basically, the Building Code of Australia is a uniform set of technical provisions for the design and construction of buildings and other structures throughout Australia. The Building Code of Australia, which is commonly abbreviated to the BCA, should form the minimum design and construction benchmark for all modular buildings. The BCA requirements which are applicable to modular buildings specifically relate to geographic location, building use, size and address items such as structural design, fire resistance, access and egress, firefighting equipment, smoke hazard management measures, emergency lighting and exit signage, and occupant health and amenity matters, and energy efficiency.
And how do compliance pathways work?
Well, compliance pathways for modular buildings typically involve having to obtain planning and building approval prior to construction works commencing. The requirements for obtaining statutory building approvals vary throughout Australia. The typical statutory approvals required for modular buildings are referred to as development approval and building permit or building licence, depending on which state or territory you're in. Basically, the location of the project, which obviously is a state and territory, will dictate which of those approvals are specifically required. Development approvals are typically issued by a local government authority, and that's issued in accordance with their relevant town planning scheme requirements. Building permits, building licences can be issued by either private building certifiers or local government authorities depending on which state or territory the project is located in.
What's the process of gaining statutory approvals?
It's similar to the question previously, and the reason for that is the process does vary depending on which state or territory the project is located in. The typical stages for obtaining statutory building approvals, for example, and in the context of modular buildings, involve first submission of development approval application to the local government authority, and that is followed by submission of building permit or building licence application to a private building certifier or local government authority. In addition to that initial process, liaison with the relevant fire brigade may be necessary where an active firefighting service is required, or there's connection to the fire brigade's alarm monitoring service. Also, you may need to liaise with fire brigades if there's a performance-based solution which affects their operational requirement.
How is the New Building Act for Western Australia affecting the industry?
The New Building Act for Western Australia is scheduled to be introduced in the middle of this year, so middle of 2011. It's important legislation which will basically, well, the key feature of it is to basically introduce a private certification process as part of the overall building permit issuing function, which is to remain the responsibility of the local government authorities in Western Australia. The private certification function will have an important impact on how the current building licence process is played out in the commercial property sector and also residential. And it's really there to relieve the ever-increasing pressure on local government authorities to issue building licences which are, within timeframes that are commensurate with competitive expectations of the marketplace. The intention is for clients to be able to engage a private building surveyor to act as a private certifier who is able to certify the project's design complies with the Building Code of Australia, and then the local government authorities can rely on that certificate to issue their building permit without having to undertake a comprehensive assessment of their own. Now, the benefit of that process is the local government authority should be able to issue a building permit within 14 days from lodgement in the event that they've had their private building surveyor certify the design, which obviously has some great benefits in terms of streamlining the existing process, which can take up to a number of months, depending on the application. The new Act will also introduce a process of occupancy permits and retrospective building approvals, which are obviously important in closing the loop on the initial building permit issue.
You're speaking at IIR's Modular Building Design, Construct and Deliver conference, which takes place on the 28th to 29th of March 2011 in Perth. What will be some of the key aspects you'll be covering in your presentation?
Well, obviously I want to really focus on building code compliance for modular buildings. I don't think we can get away from the fact that modular buildings are important, and they're an important part of the building and construction industry, and as a result they do need to comply. So I'll be addressing Building Code of Australia requirements, what the necessary approvals are, and just looking at how the new Building Act for Western Australia will change the current process. I'm looking at providing the audience with an overview of code compliance and how it obviously relates to modular buildings, and I'll draw on my experience with modular buildings, particularly in Western Australia, which includes modular buildings associated with mining camps, school buildings and residential accommodation buildings.
Scott Roberts, many thanks for your time.
Thank you, James.